This is Southern Cross News with Joe Palmer.
Fire has caused $500,000 damage to a property in Smithton overnight. The homeowner was cooking in the kitchen when the blaze broke out, unaware of the danger he was in until the last minute.
A lifetime of possessions reduced to ash. A man in his 70s was enjoying his night in his Smithton home when he heard noise coming from the ceiling.
It's burned in the roof cavity for some time before the owners probably realised that the fire is actually burning.
The homeowner tried to call for help, but his landline wasn't working.
He doesn't have a mobile phone, so then he's had to run down his driveway to the neighbours to try and ring 000 and alert the fire brigade.
Firefighters arrived at the Cantara Road home around 6:30 last night. The intense blaze spreading to 2/3 of the property, taking crews hours to extinguish. Firefighters say it spread from an old wood furnace through a rusted firebox.
We believe that heat from the fire has penetrated through those holes and impacted on the wall behind the unit.
The 1980s home was insured. The damage bill is $500,000. Residents are being reminded to properly maintain wood heaters and fireboxes. Tom Johnson, Southern Cross News.
An inquest is examining the circumstances surrounding a suspected murder-suicide in Riverside in 2013. The coroner today heard questions about the mental health care provided to John Evans, who police say killed his wife before killing himself.
Police were called to this Riverside home in September 2013. Inside, they found two bodies, Gillian Evans with a blunt force head injury and her husband John Evans with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Detective Dean Rigby told the coroner his investigation showed no one else was involved in their deaths. Counsel assisting the coroner told the inquest the mental health of Mr Evans had been a concern in the months leading up to the incident, and several levels of healthcare failed in their duty. The inquest heard from two GPs who treated Mr Evans. Dr Paul Scott said Mr Evans repeatedly expressed concerns and had anxiety about smoke from his neighbour's newly installed wood heater. In his opinion, he was obsessive about it, but didn't express psychotic thinking. Another GP, Dr Helen Dixon, said she thought the patient had a thread of ongoing anxiety and obsessive thoughts and prescribed anafranil. A long-time GP, Dr Shane Dorney, was called as an expert witness. He said Mr Evans' obsessive thoughts about being poisoned by wood smoke was a sign of early psychosis that should have been identified. The inquest heard Mr Evans was taken to the Launceston General Hospital while affected by a psychotic episode less than 2 months before the deaths. Over the next few days, the coroner will hear from several other doctors involved in Mr Evans' care and several experts giving their opinions on whether this care was adequate. Michael Breen, Southern Cross News.
And if you or anyone you know needs help, contact a Lifeline on 13 11 14. The local government minister is threatening to resuspend the Glenorchy City Council with no evidence of progress between bickering aldermen. Peter Gutwin is awaiting a Board of Inquiry report before deciding the council's future, as its release continues to be held up by legal action.
It's a saga continuing to plague the Glenorchy community. The local government minister today making a fresh threat to aldermen for another 6-month suspension.
I'm of a view that nothing has changed since we made that initial suspension, and therefore I'm minded to resuspend again, but I want to provide the alderman with the opportunity to provide a response.
In a letter to aldermen, the minister says his concerns haven't been addressed, including alleged breaches of the Local Government Act, leaks of confidential information, evidence of hostility at meetings and between aldermen, and an attempt to change the General Manager's contract that may have posed a financial burden to the community.
There's a more detailed statement of reasons which the letter references. That needs to be kept confidential because that relates to matters that were discussed at a closed council meeting.
Confidential information that may be made public through a Board of Inquiry report. Legal challenges continue to prevent its release. The General Manager today appealing a failed suppression order, with the matter adjourned for next month.
Every time this continues to be dragged on through the courts and obstruction to the Board of Inquiry, it costs our community dearly.
The current Council Commissioner, Sue Smith, says she'd be willing to remain in the position for an extended 6-month period if the local government minister issues another suspension. Ratepayers again expected to foot a 6-month salary bill of $100,000.
But I think the community in Glenorchy would like this matter to be brought to a head, as would the government.
Well, the Huon Valley Council will also remain under its Commissioner. Adriana Taylor is set to stay on for another 12 months from October, with key ministerial directions yet to be achieved. Jacqueline Robson, Southern Cross News.
Doubts have been raised over the number of Tasmanians employed in the state's gambling industry. The Australia Institute Tasmania has released a new report using data from the Australian Bureau of Statistics. It's found the sector employs at most 1,500 people. That figure is in stark contrast to a 2015 report commissioned by the state government showing a 4,000-person workforce. The Institute believes industry-provided data is flawed.
What they had done, or how people are quoting those figures, is that as though every person who worked in a gambling establishment spent their entire time working on the gambling, and that's actually just not true. The industry itself says it's around 19%.
The Australia Institute report, as far as I'm concerned, reflects those that have driven the report, and that is former staff members of the Greens, and therefore it falls very neatly into the Greens' policy position.
The Institute says this dramatically reduces the impact of a poker machine phase-out. The gambling industry remains subject to an ongoing parliamentary inquiry. An ocean heatwave in Tasmania in 2015-16 is blamed for an outbreak of disease that significantly damaged the state's seafood industry. A report released by IMAS today says the increase in temperature in the Tasman Sea at the time is a sign of things to come.
An unprecedented heatwave in the Tasman Sea that affected an area more than 7 times the size of Tasmania.
It lasted for more than 8 months, with temperatures above 3 degrees Celsius above normal.
The changes were caused by the East Australian current that brings warm water from tropical regions down the Australian east coast to Tasmania. Over that time, the current had intensified and made temperatures warmer than normal.
This region has been experiencing a long-term warming of about 4 times the global average rate of temperature change. And what we saw in 2015-16 was a particularly strong East Australian current during that time.
The report states that the warmer waters were responsible for the Pacific oyster mortality syndrome that caused the Tasmanian oyster industry to lose millions of dollars.
We saw salmon that were compromised, I guess, by the temperatures. And we also saw black-lip abalone that were dying that we hadn't really seen before in the region.
Scientists warning that the event is a sign of things to come, but there are actions for prevention and adaptation that can be taken.
Reduce our emissions and reduce the effects of climate change due to human-induced causes.
Louise Hedger, Southern Cross News.
Tasmania's economic growth is now above the national average, with the latest Deloitte Access report describing our state as quietly kicking goals. Key economic drivers include the tourism and hospitality sector, a booming housing market and a growth in jobs and population. However, there was a downturn in retail growth, overseas exports and construction in the housing sector.
Not only are we providing the $20,000 first home builders boost, but we've removed stamp duty for off the plan house and land packages. Importantly, we're also doing a review of all government land that's held by not only departments but by government businesses.
Tasmania is described as having a modest outlook for the next 5 years. More Tasmanian children dealing with trauma and grief will be able to access support services thanks to the donation of a new car to City Mission. The vehicle will help meet growing demand for these services, especially in the state's northwest.
They can build the resilience and the skills to just deal with some of the things that they've experienced.
Councillors previously had to use private vehicles to reach those in need. 20 schools and more than 200 children receive support under City Mission's Inside Out for Kids program. Rainy days and school holidays don't always go hand in hand. But for these 22 energetic youngsters, it was the perfect excuse to dress up as their favourite characters and impress a crowd. Exit Left Performing Academy hosting a workshop for children aged 4 to 6 to learn, rehearse and perform the stage show Aladdin, all in just one day.
The thing that these kids are learning is that whole sense of confidence, that they can walk into a room, work with people that they've never met before and share that full sense of fun.
I do it 100 days because I love Aladdin. And my most favourite character is Jasmine.
The school holiday workshops are planned for Launceston, Burnie and Devonport next year. Looking at the day's business and finance news with thanks to Tasplan, your local super fund, the Australian share market has closed slightly lower after a slump in banking, consumer and health stocks overpowered gains in miners and energy companies. The ASX 200 index has dropped by 9.6 points. A short time ago, the Australian dollar was trading at just over 78 US cents and 106.5 New Zealand cents.
To the TSL now, and bottom place Burnie is taking heart out of its clash against title favourite North Launceston yesterday. The Dockers held a 2-goal lead at half-time and were still in front early in the final quarter before the Bombers went on to win by 20 points. Coach Clint Proctor says his players didn't drop their heads despite a big loss to Glenorchy the week before.
Ability to run out a game at this level is so important, to have that extra leg speed and to apply the pressure for, the 120 minutes that's required. So I was really wrapped with, I guess, the way they responded.
Burnie has the bye this week before taking on Clarence at Blunston Arena. And the votes are in for the RACT Insurance Player of the Year in the TSL after round 15. With Jack Event's efforts earning him 3 votes following North Launceston's win over the Burnie Dockers. Will Campbell took out best on ground after Hobart City Demons' comfortable win over Devonport. James Webb from Glenorchy took the votes after the Pies' win over Clarence. And Lauderdale's Thor Boscott was judged best of field for the Bombers in their win over the Tigers. To the leaderboard, and Jay Bowden remains on top, 3 votes clear of North Launceston's Tom Couch. Thor Boscott is 1 vote further behind in third. Tasmanian Jacob Birtwistle has helped Australia earn its first ever gold medal in the triathlon team relay at the World Championship. With the odds stacked against him, Birtwistle made up an incredible 36-second deficit to win the race. After claiming a solo silver yesterday, Birtwistle was back, but this time for Team Australia. Part of the mixed team relay, Birtwistle watched his 3 compatriots complete each of the swim, ride and run legs, before being handed a 36-second shortfall when his turn came. The Launceston local chipped away at the deficit, making up 10 seconds in the swim, then catching up to leaders USA and Canada on the bike. His transition onto foot wasn't the best, entering first and leaving in third, but a monster final effort earned the desired result. The 22-year-old had American Matthew McElroy hot on his heels, but Birtwistle burnt the final 200 metres to secure the team's gold.
Having been the bridesmaid for so long, Australia are going to get the job done. Australia win the World Championships.
How good's Hamburg? I love it here. Happy with the race yesterday and obviously again today to come out with the guys and we're all able to put together a good race and end up World Champions. It's pretty awesome.
In London, 4th Dion Kenzie has claimed silver at the World Para-Athletics Championships. Competing in the 800 metres, Kenzie was quick out the blocks, taking the lead at the 200 metre mark. But Kenzie slipped back on the second lap and looked poised to take third, before Canada's Liam Stanley clipped his own heels to fall out of contention. Kenzie crossed the line in 2 minutes and 2 seconds. And Hobart's Alex Peroni narrowly avoided a crash in race 2 at the Formula Renault Euro Cup overnight. Peroni snuck between Neil Van Hagen and Enrique Chavez, who collided on a hairpin. Peroni survived the atrocious conditions on the Nürburgring track to finish 15th. South Hobart has one hand on the NPL trophy following its 4-1 win over Clarence. The task now for coach Ken Morton is to keep a lid on his side for the final 5 games.
We want to keep winning. you know, we don't want to drop points now and put pressure on ourselves. The main thing is to keep playing with the same speed and intensity and working hard for each other and grinding out the results when we have to.
The team is 7 points clear on top of the table. South Hobart last claimed the title in 2014.
Good evening. Hobart, Burnie and Devonport all 12 degrees today. Launceston 11. Swan Island the top with 15. Temperatures close to average. A few showers swept over the state as well, with the highest fall 15 millimetres at Lake Gardner. Wynyard and Sheffield both with 12 millimetres. Flinders Island, Friendly Beaches and St Helens 14 today. King Island and Lowhead 13 degrees, Wynyard and Grove 12, Campania and Strawn 11. South East Australia had plenty of cloud cover ahead of an upper trough over that region. We also have cloud over the Southern Ocean circulating around a complex area of low pressure, the north of the nation mostly clear. There is extensive cloud over the state today and we all saw that. And tomorrow a broad area of low moves over us with the front through the Tasman Sea linked to an inland trough over Queensland. A high pressure system enters the bight. North to northwesterly winds at 15 to 25 knots over the north and to 10 to 20 knots elsewhere around the coast. Lighter and more variable winds inland. Tuesday, a shower or two for Hobart, 13 the top. Adventure Bay, 13 as well on a top of 10 for Tarraleah. Launceston, rain clearing, 12 the high, 13 for Devonport and Bridport with a similar forecast. Burnie tomorrow, rain clearing, 13 the top, a few showers for Strawn and Marrawar, 13 as well. While for St Helens, a morning shower clearing, 13 the top, 14 for Swansea. Rain for Whitemark and 13 degrees. There's Wednesday's forecast. Showers mainly over western, central and southern areas. Snow down to 400 metres, a bit more coming. Those showers extending to the east on Thursday, fine but cloudy over the north. And on Friday, partly cloudy with morning fog and frost. Late showers for Perth tomorrow. Adelaide, Melbourne, Canberra and Brisbane also expecting a shower or two, but sunny in Sydney and 21. It's cloudy in Hobart, 10 at the moment, 10 degrees in Launceston, Devonport currently 12. Back to your early comment, Joe, about my prowess on the diving board. I cannot do a backflip, but I can do a mean belly flop.
Well, you got the belly for it. Thank you very much for that, Murph. And that's all from the news team for now. We'll see you throughout the evening with some updates. But for now, have a great night. Bye-bye.